What a year 2020 has been. From bushfires to a global pandemic to an ongoing trade war to the always interesting and important United States election. Obviously, each of us as individuals, us as nations, and as the global community have not been immune to these developments. We at the Perth USAsia Centre saw 2020 start as a relatively normal year. We were honoured to host a former U.S. Senator Jeff Flake for a series of events in the middle of the Australian summer. We were able to kick off our third annual U.S.-Japan Symposium, take a trip to Washington, D.C., continue with our regional network of young emerging scholars in the U.S.-Australia Alliance, all before the pandemic kicked off. And yet, in the beginning of March, we had to rework our entire annual business plan as we had to figure out how to work from home and to change a business model that had relied upon international travel, large public conferences, and in-person meetings. I could not be more proud of my team at the Perth USAsia Centre for, again, not only making that adjustment, but rethinking about how we can reach our community here in Western Australia, in Australia more broadly, and throughout the Indo-Pacific. During the course of this year, despite all the disruptions, we have been able to put together a series of virtual events which are no longer bound by geography. And in so doing, we've found that we have actually a much broader audience than we had anticipated. During the course of this year thus far, we have had over 200 speakers from over 10 different countries participate in a broad range of programs which have reached out to a much larger audience in over 35 different countries. And in that context, we're always deeply appreciative of you, our community, with which we have built the Centre and its activities over the course of the last nearly 7 years. As I look back at 2020, I'm deeply appreciative of our community within the Indo-Pacific. We've been able to do both in-person and primarily now online roundtables with Australia's ambassadors to the region, as well as the region's envoys here to Australia. We've been able to build our own research capacity by bringing on board 6 different Indo-Pacific fellows to help us understand developments in Japan, in Indonesia, in Vietnam, in India, and even here in Australia as we deal with the changes in this region. And through it all, we made an early decision during the advent of COVID that we wanted to make sure that we continued to focus on those core developments in our region that are of essential importance to Australia and to the region, and yet we're not getting the required coverage during the COVID era, during the tsunami of news that always follows an American electoral process, and then bring it home to our communities who need to understand these developments. And in that context, we have, as always, placed a high priority on our near neighbors of Indonesia, on Vietnam, on India as an emerging power, and very close partners like Japan and South Korea. We have been deeply gratified by the ongoing support of the University of Western Australia. We were pleased to support the development of a new defence and security program here at the University of Western Australia, to welcome a new Vice Chancellor, to host Australia's Minister of Defence, Senator Linda Reynolds, for the public launch of Australia's groundbreaking 2020 Defence Strategic Update here on campus, despite the COVID environment, and do a broad range of other research projects that we think have immediate relevance for our stakeholders. That includes groundbreaking research on a future batteries initiative, future batteries industry rather, as part of a cooperative research council grant that is partly hosted here at UWA and authored by our Director of Research, Jeff Wilson. His ongoing work on critical materials continues to be important, including launches in Washington, D.C. And this year has largely been about trade. So you will have been hard-pressed to turn on a TV without finding one of my colleagues talking about developments on trade in relationships with China, with developments in Indonesia, or obviously the ongoing dramas in the United States surrounding the United States election process. Through it all, the thing that has enabled our successes this year really has been you. It is the fact that we have a community here in Western Australia who are willing to and able to participate in our in-person events, that we have a growing community of interested viewers who, whether it be in Canberra or Sydney or Singapore or throughout the Indo-Pacific, are interested in the developments that we deem important, more broadly, those in the federal government, the WA state government, the University of Western Australia, and our core corporate partners such as Rio Tinto, Wesfarmers, Chevron, and Impex, who have enabled us to continue to carry out our work despite the changed environment. So as we wrap up 2020, we do so with a degree of optimism. We are able to be fleet of foot, to make adjustments to changes in the international environment. We're confident that the issues that we continue to cover will only be more important still as the next year unfolds, and we are deeply gratified by the tremendous community of support that we have enjoyed. So on behalf of all of us here at the Perth USAsia Centre, we thank you for your support. We thank you for your ongoing attention to the issues we work on. We look forward to partnering with you ever closely, both virtually and hopefully more in person as we go into 2021. And we wish you all a most joyous holiday season as this year wraps up and we recharge our batteries and prepare for 2021.